Now let's turn our attention to motor racing. This time next weekend, a Kent driver will be lining up on the grid in Bahrain for the second race in the MRF Challenge. 22-year-old from West Malling has been attracting a lot of attention too. Laura Tillett, the only woman competing in the upper reaches of the sport, progressing through to the karting scene to bag a drive in the Asian Series. Later in the programme, we'll hear her thoughts on that championship. But firstly, she tells Ben Croucher about the pros and cons of growing up as a girl in a man's world.
That's really difficult. It's difficult because you're a girl anyway, and the boys don't like it when you are competing against them. And obviously you're growing up and you're trying to feel your feet with life in general, and slight comments hurt you more and things. But it makes me stronger, and I feel like I'm better as a person now for it. So, it makes me harder, and it made me want it more.
So at that level, what was it like? Because presumably that not that being a man or a woman generally hinders you physically, but at that age even less so. What was it like when you started beating those guys?
Oh, it's the best feeling in the world. You just want it again and again. You just can't compare to race. Like if you race some women, it wouldn't be the same, I think, because you feel like you've got one up on the gender, the opposite gender, and you just. It's the best feeling, and they hate it.
Why do they hate it though? Because surely it's just another person racing, regardless of what age, what gender you are.
I think they feel like you're a girl, it's a male-dominated sport, so you're kind of putting them down and making them feel beneath you.
You've always got that, and I think it's probably going to be like that for a long, long time, isn't it? When they stick you in a cart, all the blokes, regardless of knowing what you've done, whether you race in the World Championships or it's your first time in a car, they're going to think, I can beat her because she's a girl.
That happens a lot, especially in endurance races. I get, a lot of people come up to me and say, oh, you're just a girl, so I'll beat you. And then I'll stick it on pole, and then they're like, oh, actually, I had a problem or something like that. Because they just don't expect you to be as good as them. And I think it's great because motorsport is one of the only sports where women can compete with men evenly. And I'd love to, obviously, being a girl, I'd love to be completely different to everybody else and racing on that grid.
But do you need to make yourself completely different with your driving and your attitude rather than just, I'm a girl, so I'm automatically different from you straight away?
Yeah, I think obviously you have to be almost a package when you're a racing driver. You have to be the part, race the part, talk the part, and be appealing to sponsors. And it depends which way you want to go down that. But a lot of the drivers nowadays are very strict, and they all talk the same, they all work the same. Everything, you can't really pick them out of a hat because they're so like the same. So boring. I wanted to be like different and make a stand for myself and be remembered for being a good driver and having a different way about myself.
So does that help you then, being a woman in that man's world, in the fact that you do turn heads without really even needing to try?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it does help. It's definitely got its benefits.
In what way?
Like, for instance, in India, I was definitely getting a lot more interviews than any of the boys and a lot more photos taken. It helps. It's not what I would like, because I'd like to be known as a driver as everybody else, but obviously it does have its benefits. You have to use them, and I do try and use them.
Do you think if you had the same amount of ability that you did, if you were male, you'd get the same opportunities you did at the minute? Would you get more opportunities?
No. I think being a girl on a level playing field with a man, I stand out a lot more than a man. If you're a guy and you're a driver, you have to have something completely different about you. You have to either stand out in another way or be super talented. But whereas a girl, I think you can be, I'm not saying like I'm average, but an average girl driver with an average boy is always going to be picked up more than the boys. Everyone wants a girl to drive, don't they?
I know they probably resent that quite a lot. Do you resent that? Is it patronising towards you in that respect?
It is, because it does have its negatives as well. Everyone just assumes you're a girl driver and you're not very good.
But when you're getting handed opportunities, almost as you're saying, regardless of ability, because you're female.
Yeah. I don't like the fact that I get I say I don't like the fact I get the opportunities because I'm a girl, but obviously I do because I'm where I am because I'm a girl. For me, I would rather get to Formula One on talent and knowing that I got there because I was a good driver, not because I was a girl. And I think a lot of girls would think that because you're in a male-dominated sport, you want to be, you wouldn't be competing in a male-dominated sport if you didn't want to be better than them.
That's Laura Tillett. We'll get back to her a little bit later in the programme. In the next hour of the show, round about 4:20, we'll hear more of that interview. Time now for our second part of our interview with Westmoreland racing driver Laura Tillett. Earlier we heard the challenges and benefits of being a woman competing in a largely male sport. Having become the first British woman to compete in the World Karting Championship, Laura progressed to racing in the Formula BARC Renault Series in 2012. But as the money dried up, so did her prospects of racing in 2013. That was until she received an offer to race in the MRF Challenge in India and Bahrain. She finished 13th and 15th in the first meeting in India and heads to Bahrain next weekend for round 2.
2 weeks before the event in India, I got offered the drive, and when they said it was racing against the Indian Grand Prix, well, supporting the Indian Grand Prix, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it at first. My parents were shocked and couldn't believe it. Like I say, it was the best race of my life, most memorable thing I've ever done, and like just being able to compete on that grid and race on the same track as Formula 1 drivers, that was amazing.
Tell us about that weekend, because Sky picked you up, a load of media outlets picked you up, you were live on the telly, you got to support the F1 race, you got to watch it from overlooking at one of the best vantage points on what's widely regarded as one of the best racetracks in the world. Tell us what that's like growing up, having the year that you've just had, where you say it's the lowest you've been, to just have that moment that you've dreamed about for so long.
That I can't explain. It still now is a shock to me, and to be able to race again was a great surprise. To be able to race again at the Grand Prix at that track was just, I will never be able to compare it. The track was great. Being able to be interviewed by different people, I felt like a celebrity for the day. You know, it's just brilliant. And I think because I was the only girl, I really stood out, which really helped. And hopefully that will bring out a sponsor for next year. The race just was a great race. I loved every lap. I loved every moment. You know, if something was going wrong, I was still happy because I was just so excited to be there. And
is there not a danger now, though, that you've experienced this, you've got a taste for this again, you know how good it can be, that it can all go again?
It's going to be difficult, and I know it's obviously something that might happen, but obviously I didn't know that I was going to be driving this year, so the fact that a free driver's come along has only given me hope to sort of think, well, maybe something else will come along. It's something every driver has to deal with. You know, even people in Formula 1 can lose their drive at the end of the year. You just have to hope that someone else will help you and you will be still racing. So
you got the first weekend out of the way, you're going to Bahrain next weekend. What do you need to achieve there? Because did you blow a few cobwebs off in that last race where you were a bit rusty, and now you can start to enjoy it a little bit more?
Yeah, I think I had to get used to the car. It took a while to get used to the car, and then the difference between the previous car I raced the year before. Also the racing. I did a kart race the week before, so I had a little bit of racing prep, learning the track because it's a big track. Yeah, just getting stuck in and doing all the steps again. It did take a while, and hopefully now I've learnt it so that when I'm in Bahrain, it will just come easily and should be fine.
Looking ahead then, next year, just finally, 2014, 2015, 2016, what's Laura Tillett going to be doing? How do you want to have your career progress? If you could make a realistic prediction and a realistic hope and expectation, how do you want to move on in this ever-growing and ever-competitive industry?
It's difficult because everybody says you need a 5-year plan and things, but you do have to take it as it comes. But I would love to be able to realistically race in Formula Renault next year. Hopefully get a sponsor for that and race 2 litres in perhaps the NEC or the Euro Series. Obviously, once I've done a few years in that, would be good once I've learned everything to then do the World Series, the 3.5 Renault World Series. That would be an amazing car to drive. Everyone I know has raced that, and it just looks brilliant. And obviously you're watched by Formula 1 people there. Then hopefully the next step would be Formula 1, and I'd love to be the first girl to actually properly make a step in it.
You need to start winning though, don't you?
Yes, I do need to start winning. That does come with practice.
We wish her well. We'll follow Laura Tillett on BBC Radio Kent in the MRF Challenge in India and Bahrain.